It was the sound of his own panic that finally made it all worth it. The frantic clicking of a mouse, the sharp, ragged breaths. For 6 months, my coworker, Seth, had built his career on my hard work. But on the day of his biggest client report, the Excel spreadsheet I helped him with turned into a house of cards, and I was the one who pulled the first brick. If you know what it's like to be taken advantage of, to watch someone else get credit for your sweat, then you need to hear this story. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because on this channel, we specialize in stories where justice isn't just served, it's a work of art. Today's Baal is a masterclass in turning a slacker's own laziness against him. Let's dive in. Let me paint you a picture of my office. Fluorescent lights humming, the scent of stale coffee, and the quiet, diligent tapping of keyboards. And then there was Seth. Seth was a vortex of inactivity. His greatest talent wasn't in sales or analytics. It was in the art of the disappearing act. A 15-minute bathroom break that magically stretched into 45 minutes. A quick lunch that coincided with the entire second half of the afternoon. We all knew it. We all saw him, phone glowing under his desk, feet propped up, a master of looking just busy enough to not get caught. But his real genius was in delegation, specifically delegating to me. It started small. Hey, can you just proofread this for me? You're so much better at it. Then it became, you finished your project early? Mind running these numbers for me? I'm swamped. He'd always frame it as a compliment. You're just so much faster than me. But the subtext was clear. Your time is less valuable than mine.
The frustration started as a low simmer. It was the tightness in my shoulders every time I saw an email from him pop up. The way my jaw would clench when I'd hear his laugh from the break room while I was knee-deep in his data analysis. I'd stare at my screen, my own work piling up, and feel this hot, acidic resentment burning in my gut. I wasn't just doing my job, I was doing his, and he was getting the praise for our combined effort. It was a special kind of powerlessness. I went to our boss, Linda. I tried to be professional. I'm concerned about the distribution of work on the Johnson account, I'd say. But Seth had a silver tongue. He'd talk about collaboration and team synergy. He'd flash a charming smile and say, I was just leveraging our strengths, Linda. And she'd buy it. He made my valid complaints sound like petty whining. After the second time, Linda gave me a patronizing smile and said, let's try to be more of a team player, okay? It was that moment the simmer reached a rolling boil. The final straw wasn't a request, it was a dump truck. It was 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. Seth sauntered over, the smell of his expensive cologne doing little to mask the stench of his laziness. Nobody panic, he said, with a grin that made my fingers curl into a fist. The Henderson report? It's due first thing Friday morning. Client moved the meeting. I've got a family thing tomorrow, so I'm going to need you to run the final numbers and compile the deck. You're a lifesaver.
He didn't ask. He stated. He was already turning away, pulling his car keys from his pocket. 2 days of work dumped on my desk with less than 36 hours notice. And that family thing? I saw his Instagram later that night. He was at a concert. I sat there, my vision tinged with red. The audacity was breathtaking. This wasn't just laziness, it was disrespect. It was a declaration that my time, my effort, my career meant nothing. The old me would have sighed, bought an extra large coffee, and resigned myself to another sleepless night saving his skin. But not this time. This time, a cold, calm clarity washed over me. The anger didn't disappear. It just crystallized into something sharp, focused, and patient. He wasn't going to fail because I didn't help him. He was going to fail precisely because I did. The plan began with a simple, innocent question. I leaned over my cubicle wall the next morning. Hey Seth, you any good with Excel's advanced functions, pivot tables, nested formulas? He didn't even look up from his phone. Nah, man, that's what I've got you for, right? He laughed. It was the confirmation I needed. The hook was set. When he emailed me the raw data for the Henderson report later that day, I replied with a smiley face. No problem. I'll get this sorted for you. And I did. Oh, I sorted it beautifully. I didn't just organize the data, I weaponized it. Over the next few hours, while Seth was at a long lunch, I became an artist. I embedded hidden formulas deep within the sheets, nothing that would be visible to the casual glance. A simple equals A2 times 1.05 in a cell formatted to white text on a white background, making a key figure 5% too high. An equals rand function tied to a macro that would trigger on copy-paste, subtly scrambling a column of percentages. A few if statements that would look correct at a glance but would reference wrong cells if the data was moved. It was a Rube Goldberg machine of failure hidden inside a perfectly normal-looking spreadsheet.
The beauty of it was its elegance. It wasn't a virus. It wasn't sabotage anyone could trace. It was a trap designed for one person, and one person only. Someone too lazy to check their work, too arrogant to think they needed to, and too ignorant of Excel to fix it when it inevitably fell apart. The day the report was due, Seth was in rare form. He waltzed in late, grabbed the coffee I'd made, and spent the morning loudly talking about his big client presentation. He never once opened the file I'd sent back to him. Why would he? Seth Inc. was operating at peak efficiency. I did the work. He took the credit. Then, at 2 p.m., the phone rang at his desk. I heard his cheerful, "Seth speaking." The cheer evaporated. It was replaced by a stammer. What? No, that can't be right. Let me check the file. This was the moment. The first domino fell. I watched him over the top of my monitor. His face, once so smug, was now pale. His fingers, usually so slow, became a frantic blur on his keyboard. Click, 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 click. Swear under his breath. Click. The frantic copy-paste. The numbers on his screen mutated. They shimmered and changed. His eyes widened in pure, unadulterated terror.
He spun in his chair, his eyes wild, finding me. Hey, something's wrong with the Henderson file? The numbers are glitching? I put on my best concerned face. I even got up and walked over. A glitch? That's weird. It worked fine on my machine. I leaned over his shoulder, watching the digital carnage unfold. It was a beautiful mess. Huh. Maybe you copied the values wrong? Did you paste as values, or just paste? He stared blankly. He had no idea what that meant. I gave him a few useless tips. Try closing and reopening it, and went back to my desk. For the next 3 hours, I got to work on my own projects, accompanied by the sweet symphonic sounds of a man desperately trying to dig his way out of a hole I'd built with a shovel made of his own incompetence. Every time he thought he'd fixed one error, another would pop up elsewhere. It was a hydra of his own making. The final act was when our boss, Linda, emerged from her office. The client had called her directly. Her expression was a thundercloud. Seth, my office, now. Through the glass walls, we all saw it. The performance, the charm offensive, the excuses. But this time, he had nothing. He couldn't blame a glitch without admitting he hadn't checked the work. He couldn't blame me without admitting he'd handed it all off. He was trapped. His hands flew up in the air, trying to weave a story, but the threads kept snapping. Linda's arms were crossed. She wasn't buying it. She pointed at his computer. She was making him show her the file. I saw the exact moment his silver tongue turned to lead.
He emerged from that office looking like a ghost. The word sabotage was never uttered because there was no evidence of it. The official reason was gross negligence and failure to perform basic due diligence on a client deliverable. The consequence? Temporary leave, without pay. The next day, the office was quieter. The air was easier to breathe. The weight on my shoulders was gone. Seth's empty chair was a monument to poetic justice. He eventually came back, of course, but he was different, quiet. He did his own work. He never once asked me for a single thing. He'd been fundamentally broken, and the tool of his destruction was the very thing he'd always taken for granted: my competence. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about shouting or fighting. It's about patience. It's about understanding your enemy's weaknesses better than they do. Seth's weakness was his laziness, and I didn't attack it. I simply gave it enough rope to hang itself with. In the end, he wasn't fired by me. He was fired by the person he'd worked so hard to create, the laziest version of himself. And that's how an Excel spreadsheet became an instrument of karma. If you've ever wanted to see a slacker get their perfect comeuppance, you've got to let me know in the comments below. What's the most satisfying workplace justice you've ever witnessed? Smash that like button if you enjoyed the show, subscribe for more tales of exquisite revenge, and remember, sometimes the quietest revenge is the sweetest. Thanks for watching.